Hi everyone, it's Hazard060 back with some more Smite today. We are playing a Conquest match and we are playing Erlang Shen in the jungle role. In this Smite talk video I'm going to be focusing on looking through the relics available in Smite and what relics to choose and why, mainly focusing around the Conquest game. If you're completely new to Smite, then relics give you an extra ability or special power that you can use throughout the game. All gods can choose any relic and you have 2 relic slots available. Your first relic you can pick up at level 1 and your second relic becomes available to you at level 12. You also have a choice of 14 different relics available. The reason I wanted to do a video on this is because there is obviously a lot of relics to choose from. The majority of the time the same 3 or 4 relics are always picked up, whether that's from the recommendation screen or just people's general gameplay. You usually see the standard Aegis Amulet, Purification Beans, Blink Rune and sometimes the occasional magic shell. But that leaves another good 10 relics to choose from, and I want to look at how to branch out and take advantage of them relics. This video will go through each relic's ability, their upgraded effect, and then which gods would have which relic. I want to quickly put a disclaimer here, this is not a foolproof guide to relics, this is just my opinion and a little bit of a discussion about using different relics. And as I've said, I'm going to be looking at what relics to pick up for what role in the main game style, which is Conquest of Smite. So let's begin. We'll go through each relic's ability to start off with. I'm going to put a link in the description to this video to the Smite Wiki with all the relics descriptions anyway. So if you want any extra information about any relics, you can go onto that and you can have a look. You can look it up. So starting off with Aegis Amulet, Aegis or Aegis, depending on your own pronunciation. I will be saying Aegis. So using Aegis Amulet item makes you invulnerable to damage and healing for 1.5 seconds. Prevents you from taking any actions. You may still move. So that basically means that you are invulnerable, but you can't use any of your abilities, and you can still move. This is probably the most common relic used in Smite at the moment because this relic is a real lifesaver throughout the game, especially in the late game or later in a fight. Say you're in a team fight and you get focused on, using Aegis will prevent a lot of damage and mean you are safe from being hit for a period of time. Shield is also very powerful in that time it can help you get cooldowns off. So not only are you protected, it means that your abilities are able to come up if they're close to coming up. And you're pretty much untouchable apart from crowd control effects, so stuns, knock-ups, being taunted, things like that. So Aegis is a very common pickup and it gets you out of a lot of trouble when the team is trying to delete you off the map, or if you are a squishy god and you haven't got much HP. No wonder it's picked up and used probably the most in the whole game. The upgrade of this relic decreases the cooldown from 180 seconds to 150. This is very beneficial again later in the game if you need to use this ability more often. Next relic to look at is Belt of Frenzy, a slept on relic in my opinion that is great for team fighting and a really underrated relic. Using Belt of Frenzy grants an allied god within 70 units 10% increased damage dealt to all targets including objectives and 15% attack speed increase for 5 seconds. So this item is perfect for late game fights. It gives that additional attack speed and damage to all targets, which I think a lot of people miss. So it's not just enemy gods, it's objectives, minions, literally anything that takes damage, it takes that extra 10% damage. This is good if you're falling a bit behind and you need something to help you out in team fights, because then your team will be able to do more damage in that precious few seconds. The upgrade increases the duration to 8 seconds and gives a plus 10 flat penetration, not percentage, just extra pen on its own. It's amazing against gods that build protections, and it's good against late game objectives like the fire giant. This buff can be picked up by almost any god role, not just 1 or 2. There's no one set role that should be delegated to get this relic. If you can afford to have more than one on a team, that's even better, because then if you have more than one engagement, someone else can pop their Belt of Frenzy. But it is a really good relic to choose. Next we have Blink of Rune, considered probably the most fun relic in the game. Personally, I know that I really enjoy blinking on an enemy when they're not expecting it and getting a really important kill on them if you're able to catch up on them or catch them unguarded. Using Blink will allow you to teleport up to 45 units away instantly. This item cannot be used if you have taken or dealt damage in the last 3 seconds. So be aware that you have to be out of combat to use Blink, and this can be a real pain if you're trying to use it as a getaway, because if you're taking any damage then you can't use it to move quickly. But it is a brilliant item for engaging in fights right at the beginning, jumping on enemies or chasing them down. The upgrade reduces the cooldown to 120 seconds, and it also gives a 10% damage mitigation buff for 2 seconds after using it. So if you use it to engage and then the enemy team start hitting you, you actually take less damage if you've got the upgrade, which is good. This item is predominantly picked up by the jungler, as this can be very helpful with ganks, but don't be surprised to see it on the mid or even the support role as well. After Blink Rune, we have Bracer of Undoing. Not a common relic to see in Conquest, but it does have a really good effect, and it is one to be considered. Using Bracer of Undoing restores 40% of mana and health lost within the last 5 seconds. So this is good if the enemy team has a lot of burst damage to help heal back up quickly. I would say possibly see this in the solo lane, but not very often. A good upgrade on this relic is the upgrade of Bracer of Undoing. It subtracts 3 seconds from all abilities currently on cooldown. So it's really good to help with that extra cooldown speed if your build hasn't necessarily got cooldown in it. The next relic to look at is Cursed Ankh. I personally wish this one was noted more and used more often, because this relic can really impact a team that relies on healing and shut down certain gods like Aphrodite or Sylvanas. So using Cursed Ankh reduces the healing received by all enemy gods within 55 units by 50% for 10 seconds and removes 50% of any currently applied shield. So if a team relies on healing or using shields to keep their health up, using Cursed Ankh in the middle or near the end of a team fight or just any fight with the enemy gods can stop this happening, and means enemy gods stay low on health and hopefully be finished off because they're not going to get that healing off. The upgrade of this relic is that enemies that are healed while affected by Cursed Ankh take 20% more damage from all sources for the duration of the curse. So say they're getting healed while affected by Cursed Ankh, they ended up taking more damage as a result of this. Again, this is great effect, and it's not used very often, but in certain situations can be a game changing if you've got certain gods that are pulling ahead. So for example, Anubis or Aphrodite, as I've already mentioned, Sylvanas. So definitely consider Cursed Ankh. Next up we have Heavenly Wings. Using Heavenly Wings increases the movement speed of allied gods within 55 units by 20% for 5 seconds and makes them immune to slows. This relic is really good for helping teams make engagement on enemy gods or help them to get out of fights as well. The benefit is that you are actually immune to slows, meaning you'll be able to get away in a much quicker time. Doesn't mean you're immune to stuns though, so be aware of that. You might be immune to slows, but yeah, it's still a really good helpful item if you need to disengage quickly. I've seen it used for instancing of rushing towards objectives or chasing down enemies after a team fight if one's got away on low health. It can make or break a game. It's a really important relic to think about, and more gods that have this can be beneficial, very much similar to Belt of Frenzy. The upgrade of Heavenly Wings is that it grants haste, causing allied gods to be immune to the basic attack movement penalty. So you move quicker and you won't be slowed if you're trying to basic attack while moving. Very useful for basic attacking gods, so your carry role, potentially your mid laner, and it's helpful when trying to chase down the enemy. Moving on to Horrific Emblem, another relic that is not picked up enough in the game. Using this item, this relic slows the movement speed of all enemy gods in 35 units by 30% for 5 seconds. Their attack speed is also reduced by 15% for the duration. This can be really helpful for getting teammates away from enemy gods, as this will deter enemies from chasing. The other benefit is if you are chasing a god, they will be unable to get very far because you've slowed them and they're not able to attack. If you get the upgrade of Horrific Emblem, the attack speed debuff is increased to 25% for that duration. Additionally, the damage dealt is reduced by 15%. So late game, this can be a really good effect on team fights, as the enemy god will be dealing less damage, and it keeps your team safe. I think personally a support should really be looking to pick this up, but you could also get this from a solo lane god or even a jungler if you're feeling brave and you feel actually I want to stop the enemy from getting away. You can pick up Horrific Emblem. Next we have Magic Shell, a very common alternative relic for an obvious reason. Using Magic Shell applies a shield to the god that uses it and allies within 35 units for 100 health and 12 health per god level for 3 seconds. So a quick look at that. If all gods are level 20, that is a shield of 340 for 3 seconds, which is a really big help for gods that are not really building protections and do not have a lot of health. And could be the real difference if an enemy god is dealing high amounts of damage. The best part of this relic, however, is actually the upgrade, which gives 2 stacks of blocks, absorbing the next 2 basic attacks. So very similar to the current Hide and Nemean line. So if an enemy god is auto attack orientated, this can really shut down that god, because it means that the next 2 basic attacks they do will not do any damage. So it really can affect hunters or assassins, a few mages as well, as they'll be unable to deal damage for them 2 basic attacks. Again, you will see this picked up by the support role, but it can be picked up by other gods, as well as if the game really calls for it. So if you're a mid laner who's put up against a hunter, which does happen nowadays, I really would recommend thinking about this, because you get that extra like shield, and if you upgrade the relic, it means that you're absorbing their attacks and not taking them. Really good to think about if the opponent is building crit, because if their crits are absorbed, then you're not taking that damage. Next up is Meditation Cloak, a great relic if you have a team that is reliant on using mana and just wants that little bit of a heal. Using this item restores 75 health plus 12 health per level, and 30% mana to all allied gods within 35 units. That's 30% of their maximum mana. Medication Cloak is really useful to use to help allies that might be a bit low, and the more allies that are around you, the better. Obviously, you don't want to just be using this on one god. Obviously, in the early game, you do pick up Meditation Cloak because you think my role, I need a lot more mana. You can use Meditation Cloak on less gods, but definitely towards the end you want to be making sure your teams are grouped up when you use this ability. The upgrade is that allied gods affected by Medication Cloak have their abilities mana cost reduced by 30% and their abilities cooldown reduced by 1 second upon use. The cooldown can be really great in team fights because it just gives that 1 second extra, and the mana cost is really ideal for those that want to cast more than one ability. We've got 5 more to go. We're nearly through these relics. Next up is Phantom Veil. Using Phantom Veil allows you and allied gods within 35 units to pass through players or player-made objects for 5 seconds. This is a very situational relic. It's not one that is picked up all the time, but it is one that you need to consider. The main benefit is going through player-made objects. So you mow your wall, own a cage, renewable, all them things that can be an issue to your team. You really need to think about how that's going to help you out. So if you're put up against them gods, you might want to consider that. The upgrade of this relic is it increases the duration to 10 seconds rather than 5, and it provides a 15% damage mitigation buff for 5 seconds. So this is not just a relic to forget about and think, oh, I can only use it against walls. If you want to give that damage mitigation as well to your team, it can be a really helpful buff. After Phantom Veil is probably the next most used relic, which is Purification Beads. Using this item removes crowd control effects and makes you immune to new ones for 2 seconds. So that basically means that you can't be knocked up, stunned, taunted for them whole 2 seconds. And as you think in the number of gods that have them abilities, it's really helpful because it means that you can get out of situations. Depending on who you're put up against, you will be thinking, do I want to go Aegis first or do I want to go Purification Beads first? Purification can be really helpful to stop you from dying if you can't get away from your own. This will help you to get away. Obviously you are still immune to any damage during that time, so Aegis works really well with this because then you're completely immune. You won't be able to get crowd control and you won't have any damage, so you're almost immune, which is why you see them 2 relics picked up most than any other 2 relics in the game. The upgrade of Purification Beads is it decreases the cooldown from 160 seconds to 130 seconds. Again, very helpful for the late game. On to the last 3 relics. The next up we have Shield of Thorns. Using Shield of Thorns reflects 40% of all damage you take before mitigation for the next 5 seconds back to the owner as magical damage. So if you are dealt 150 times your level damage while this is active, the effect will end early, so it can only deal back a certain number. So the max this can mitigate is 150 times the max level, which is 20, and that would be 3,000, and then 40% of that damage would be 1,200 damage back. A great ability against gods with not much health, because if they're doing lots of damage and then you mitigate that back to them, they're going to take a lot of damage from themselves, basically. It's a really beneficial relic to have on tanks or bulk gods, so the support role or the solo role can pick this up. If they're not dealing lots of damage themselves, they can start dealing damage back to gods that have built power. The upgrade of this relic is that it gets an additional ability while this is active. Enemies can life steal from you 50% of their total life steal, half how much they life steal. It's brilliant against healer gods, and it can stop gods from using their life steal abilities in team fight situations, and it can really shut down the gods that are getting ahead. Another great relic for stopping gods that can get ahead is Sundering Spear. Using this item fires a bolt that travels 70 units, stopping on the first god hit, dealing 15% of the target's current health as full damage, so it doesn't take into consideration any protections they have, and destroying any shields that they have on them. This item you do not see too often in Conquest. It's sometimes picked up in duel one-on-one games, but I would really recommend this relic if you see one god on the enemy team starting to snowball, maybe their jungler or maybe even their carry role. You might see that god really starting to edge ahead, and you think, how are we going to shut them down? Especially if they built something like Bloodforge and are teamed up with a Kepri when using Magic Shell, because you can get rid of their shield very quickly. The upgrade of this relic is it gives the effect of increasing the damage dealt to the target by 20% for 5 seconds. So it's almost like you're putting a target on the god that you've hit and saying, I've hit them, they're going to be taking more damage for that duration. So really helpful to pick up this relic, as I said, if you find that your team is falling behind. And I think a lot of people forget this and just think, oh, the game has lost and there's no point in trying. But this is where relics make a huge difference to fights, especially when you think level 12 is around the mid-game mark, more than what do I need to build, what's going well, what's not going well. Am I just going to build the standard Aegis Amulet and Purification Beads, no, maybe I need to build something different to actually have an impact on these team fights that we're starting to get into. And finally, we have Teleport Glyph. Using this item allows you to teleport to any allied tower while rooted in place. This effect is not interrupted by damage, but is interrupted by a hard crowd control. So if you're stunned or if you're taunted, it means that you can't use this effect. So this relic you will see mainly picked up by people in the solo lane that want to get back to their lane very quickly. If you saw my Smite Talk video with some Wukong, you see that not always would you choose this in the solo lane, and it's not necessarily a must-have, but it is picked up quite often, especially as you need that farm and you don't want to be missing any farm trying to get back into the lane. You could see this picked up as the mid lane as well, but not necessarily so, because it's easier to get back into the mid lane than it is to get to the solo lane. It's not ideal for a jungler because there are so many other great relics to choose from. I wouldn't necessarily say that you need to pick this up because jungler, if you pick up the speed buff as well, you're just going to get round the map by walking, and you're going to be looking at getting camps, and you don't necessarily just want to come in on the towers. The upgrade of this relic is one that I think is very important and beneficial. It allows you to not just once you upgrade it, it doesn't just allow you to teleport to the towers, but it allows you to teleport to the wards that your team places as well. So you can literally teleport to anywhere on the map as long as there is a ward to teleport to. And this is really helpful in team fights. It can be really helpful for objective, because if your team's on a objective and you've got teleport glyph upgraded, you can back, quickly get full health, and then teleport in where they are on that objective. And that is all of the relics gone through. So now let's move on to which one to choose. And this is a very difficult question. It's not this is the only ones that you can choose, or this is how it's done. It is very situational, and it all depends on where you're playing. So the idea of combo, if you're not used to Smite or you're quite new, I would say is Aegis and Purification. The reason I say this combo is because them two give you that protection from Aegis Amulet, means that you're not doing any damage. And Purification Beads, if you use it, means that you can get out of crowd control effects, and if your enemy's stopping you from doing anything, it means that you can walk out or use abilities such as dashes to get away quickly. So if you're really unsure, they're the two to go for, but it doesn't mean that you have to go for them every time. Otherwise I would have just put that in the first 1 minute of this video. The issue I would say with these relics is that they are both very defensive relics. They are used majority of the time to get you out of danger. Purification beads can be used defensively because you can use it to stop yourself getting stunned and stay on an opponent and get that all-important kill. But Aegis Amulet is a very defensive relic, and it limits you to only using it in defensive situations. So I would personally say the top relics for each role are as follows. I'm going to put these in the description as well. So this is just my opinion of it. It's not foolproof. So if you're in the jungle role, you'll be looking to pick up Blink and Purification Beads, or Aegis, depending on the enemy team. Blink, I really feel, is important for them. Ganks and engagements, and then Purification Beads or Aegis, all depends on how much crowd control the enemy team have. If you think, actually I'm not too scared about how much crowd control they're going to do, but they deal a heck of a lot of damage, then Aegis is the one to go for. Solo, the two that you would most likely see up the top relics would be Teleport Glyph and Aegis. Teleport Glyph to get you back into lane, Aegis because if you're getting ganked, you want to be able to stop that damage from the jungler. Mid, you would see Aegis and Purification Beads. You can see that combination. You can see that safety because you'd have a lot of people congregating on the mid lane usually, and you want to keep yourself safe. Carry, again, you're a squishy god, so it would be similar to mid. You would want Aegis and Purification beads. Support role, I'd say the top relics are Meditation Cloak and Magic Shell. And the reason I say this is because as support, you're going to have a lot more health, you're going to have a lot more protections, and it means that you need to be focusing on supporting your team. And the best way to do that is to get relics that are going to help your team, gods, and that will be Meditation Cloak for that heal and the shell for the shield. Now, with that being said, I would say this all depends on the gods picked in the game, and however your game is going when you reach level 12. You could get to level 12 and feel, actually, we're pushing really far ahead, or actually, if things aren't going your way, you think, I need to stop them really healing. So you're going to decide to build anti-heal, or you could choose to pick up Cursed Tank and not have to change your items of build. It also depends on if you are confident to use the relics. For example, Blink I know can be very hard to know where to engage or where to blink to, and it can put you in more trouble than safety. So it's one that you might need to practice or be confident in picking up. I would also say it depends on the god that you're choosing. Has a major impact on your god, on your choice of relic. A big example here would be Kuzenbo. His abilities benefit from Shield of Thorns as well, because that gives him extra damage going back to the enemy gods, so you would be really looking to pick that up. And as Black Asura, for example, in the jungle, you might want to choose Horrific Emblem, because I feel like that helps you to stop enemy gods from getting away, but they're just two examples on that. I think by not choosing Aegis Purification beads as well, you can put the enemy off a bit, and they can misread plays, and you can use that to your advantage, because if they just think, oh, they're going to use the standard two relics, it makes them a bit uneasy about engaging or playing in their normal style as well, so you can really catch them off guard. I think my main point here is to try and branch out. Aegis Amulet is a relic I would personally be okay with not having as often, and if the enemy team does not have loads of crowd control abilities, I may not have to worry about purification beads. You can always buy items that can give you these effects. So for example, Magi's Cloak or Mantle of Discord can really help with immunity effects, so you don't have to pick up purification beads if you want to choose them instead. I also feel the game can go stale if you always build the same relics to build on your gods. So if you're always building the same relics, the same build, it can make it really boring. You can branch out and try new relics and see how they work, and the better you get at using these relics, the more you'll be better at playing the game in general. And I think it's really important to have a go and just see how you feel when using these relics. So that is my Smite talk on relics. I feel like I've only really scratched the surface on why choosing different relics is important. If you take anything from this video, please try to use more relics than the top 3 or 4, even though I did say that the top 3 and 4 are used in their main roles. But even so, it doesn't mean that you have to use them two every single time. Have a change of your build and see what happens. See how your game goes. You might find, actually, I played a lot better because I choose different relic, or maybe not. Let me know your opinion, guys. Let me know what you think of this. If you have any comments or like this video, please leave it a like, and don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.